Hello and welcome to The PowerSwitch, gaming's call-in talk radio show, and thank you for tuning in. I'm Peter Spezia, and today is December 19th, 2016. I'm here to host a pilot episode for this experiment in video game podcasting. Now, some of you may know that I started hosting a podcast called Show Me Your News in 2007, and that show gave me so many opportunities. I met so many friends through that. I learned so much. I ended up getting a job that I still have today because of that show. And through all of the online activities I had and participated in, I ended up meeting my wife. And so that show really gave me so much. And after about 8 years, about last year or so, I called it quits on that show because it kind of reached its end. So when I get this podcasting itch to start up a new show, I have to think, what can gaming podcasts do differently? I just can't do the same thing over and over again that everyone else does because it's so personality driven in today's gaming podcast landscape. And granted, I may have a cachet with some people, some of you who did listen to my old show, or if you're listening for the first time and you're like, who is this guy? So that's not necessarily there. So we got to do something different. And while I'm brainstorming and stewing this over and what would I be interested in doing and, committing to for an extended period of time, I'm listening to sports call-in talk radio at the time. And I'm thinking, there's different kinds of talk radio. There's sports, there's politics, there's current events, but why don't we have anything for video games? Why isn't that the case? Why don't we have a show that gamers everywhere can, call our own, where you can call in almost if it were a phone line, but, I don't have a radio station. I don't have a studio where I can manage phone lines. I don't even have a crew. I'm mostly just operating this by myself. And then there comes the platform of Discord, and that kind of allows us to use these tools to be able to recreate a kind of call-in talk radio format. Because what I think the difference is between what this show could be and other gaming podcasts are at the time currently, I think this show can be something that is for and by the people. That we can switch the power of the typical video game podcast, almost literally with the power switch, or give the control over to the audience. Because there are so many voices and opinions out there about video games, and I think we have to consider all these perspectives respectfully. Games are art, art is subjective, and everyone's opinion is different about games because our life experiences are different. And so I think to take the gaming industry seriously going forward, we need to have a mature conversation about games. And that's something that's missing with a lot of negativity that goes on the internet. So I'm never going to claim to be the smartest person in the room or the most experienced player or the most hardcore historian of video games ever, but I think what I can provide is years of experience in the podcast medium to help bring people together, whether that's through people like you calling in or special guests that will help co-host the show with me from time to time. Now, the format of the show should be pretty straightforward, I think, or at least what I'm picturing, because I'm thinking this should be on an as-needed basis. I really like talking about gaming news, and so to open these kind of talk shows, the host would generally kind of spend 10 minutes or so kind of framing the conversation with a main topic. And that's what I think would be appropriate to do, especially when there's breaking news. And what I want to try to do is generally have these on the evenings of, big game news so that we as a community on this Discord, channel can come together and react in a way. But then when there's slower news cycles, of course, we can bring up different topics of conversation. So we open the show with about 10 minutes or so of conversation. Then we take a small little break. We kind of figure out who can call in, what people can contribute when they call in, and then spend that next segment of, taking different calls. Now, depending on how many people are willing to call in, that would change the time that I'd be talking with them. If packed phone lines, so to speak, there can only be so much time. But if it's a slower night, maybe we can spend a little bit more time conversing. I'm hoping the show to be around an hour or so, and I think that's a fair time for a podcast these days, or maybe less if there's not as much to talk about. And once the calls have kind of run their course, I'll end the show with a fun little game-related segment. Could be different segments based on whatever happens. It's something that can be a little more fluid and a little more fun just to wrap things up. So if that sounds like your kind of podcast, let's get right into it. For today's topic, I want to discuss Game of the Year nominations and Game of the Year awards for 2016. Just for a pilot, and we're here at the end of 2016. It really can be timely. It doesn't really matter what day it's recording on. I mean, when there's going to be news, like the time of day or the time of recording may matter a little more, but everyone's starting to chime in and pitch in on what their game of the year is. And yeah, you get, some of the best on a certain console, some of the best games, what have you. I think there are 4 that are really common that I'm seeing, and I would tend to agree with that deserve to be up there. Overwatch, certainly. Uncharted 4, A Thief's End. Doom, and Inside. I think those 4 are generally widely accepted to be, Game of the Year contenders and nominees. And if I had to put a 5th on that list, I think I'd probably consider Pokemon Sun and Moon. Just to give a kind of Nintendo, flesh it out. I mean, there's certainly a lot of contenders, a lot of great games this year. I mean, Dishonored 2, Titanfall 2 was one that popped up at the Game Awards, which Overwatch won that one. But when I did Game of the Year award shows for my previous podcast, Show Me Your News, we had about 30 some awards, and there was a lot of work to do there. But some of those categories I found to be particularly interesting to see how the fans would vote over time, because it was really reflective of what that year was. And particularly, they were categories that not many other outlets would put any stock or consideration into those. So I wanted to kind of cover those topics for this little main topic here, and kind of give my perspective on what I think the nominees would be and what I would vote for. So I mentioned Game of the Year. If I had to pick with my quote-unquote 5 nominees to be Overwatch, Uncharted 4, Doom, Inside, and Pokemon Sun and Moon, personally, my Game of the Year out of those would be Uncharted 4, A Thief's End. Some people do like to bag on some of the Naughty Dog playstyle, and they don't like necessarily the cinematic storytelling. But I think Uncharted 4 and Naughty Dog just overall has such a technical prowess when it comes to creating games. And yes, they do think with more of a cinematic style, but the story was excellent. The acting is top notch in Naughty Dog games, just compared to any other game company, and that makes the narrative more resonant with me. As a film student, that's something that really is important to me, and I think I'd probably give Uncharted 4 my narrative of the year overall as well. But it was such a big payoff, and a lot of great moments in that game. The set pieces were fantastic as usual. Maybe the shooting was a little uninspired. I think that would be maybe one of the only detractions to that game. But for me, that was the highlight of the year for me, was Uncharted 4. Now, granted, game like Doom I have, but I've yet to play, waiting for a good PC upgrade to experience that one. And a lot of people love Overwatch. Totally understandable. A lot of great characters, good action. But it's one of those genres where with the team-based shooter, you love it, or it just does not click with you. I think you can compare Team Fortress 2 a lot to Overwatch. If you love Team Fortress 2, you're going to love Overwatch, and Team Fortress 2 never clicked with me. So I can totally understand Overwatch being a Game of the Year contender, maybe even a Game of the Year winner, certainly. But if it's a personal decision, not for me. Best moment in a game. I always found these to be really interesting. So I had 4 nominees that really stood out for me. From Inside, I almost dub it rounded chaos. It's the end of the game. It's the final sequence. If you've played the end of Inside, I certainly won't spoil it, but it's certainly one of the more memorable moments this year, I think, just for the madness that transpires. You're going through this game lost and trying to pick up clues that the game is trying to drip feed you in a way with its narrative that does not have any words. And then when this moment happens, everything goes out the window, everything changes, and it's a blast to play. From Final Fantasy 15, the Leviathan battle was one of the strongest boss battle moments this whole year. Now, granted, what happens in the narrative aside, the actual battle and the climax of that fight is it's fantastic, and it goes so well with the soundtrack. I was floored when I played it, to be honest. From Phoenix Wright Ace Attorney Spirit of Justice, I call it a dragon's fate in a way to try to be careful of what happens, but it's one of the heaviest story-hitting moments of the year. And while it isn't really from a gameplay perspective, what happens at the climax of one of the best cases in Ace Attorney, period, that was a really powerful moment, and it was something I didn't really see coming, so that hit a lot. And then from Uncharted 4, A Thief's End, a crash from the past. It happens very early on in the game, and I'm sure you've probably seen what happens, but the retro appeal and the self-referential humor that takes place there, that's something that can only happen in a video game, and that was really special. But for me, the best moment of the year was the Leviathan battle in Final Fantasy 15. Wow, I mean, I can't say enough good things about it. I mean, it's a tough thing with this category to try to be delicate with spoilers, but man, like if you got into that game and what should have been probably at more of a halfway point in the story, but the way they rushed the last third of the game, it feels like it takes place much later in the story than it actually does. But it's a powerful moment, not only for how it shifts the narrative, but just the control and power that it gives the player. That was really special. For protagonist and antagonist of the year, that's always an interesting one because it kind of goes to a character-based sort of setup there. So for protagonist of the year, I was thinking Doom Guy from Doom. For a silent protagonist to be nominated for something like this, I think just with the way he emotes, and you can tell exactly that he either doesn't care for something or that he's just ready to bust some demons' heads in. That's great. Corrin from Fire Emblem Fates, I think, would be an interesting choice as well. Not only with the different narrative options that Fire Emblem Fates presents, but just the customizability, the flexibility of the character that can really play a difference. Nathan Drake from Uncharted 4, kind of giving that character the final run there. And I think Marcus Holloway from Watch Dogs 2 would be an interesting choice as well. It's just a vast improvement over Aiden Pierce from the first Watch Dogs. But just actually having a character and a likable character as well. So for me, that would be Nathan Drake. That's giving the character on a high note, and Nolan North doing such a wonderful job portraying him. For antagonist of the year, again, it starts to delve a little bit into spoiler territory, but so I'm going to whip through these here, not give too much explanation for fear of spoilers. If you want to mute for a bit, I don't care. Arden Izunya from Final Fantasy 15, Garen Sigatar Kurain from Phoenix Wright Ace Attorney Spirit of Justice, Lusamine from Pokemon Sun and Moon, and Rafe Adler from Uncharted 4: A Thief's End. For me, it's undeniably Arden Izunya, probably one of the best antagonists that Final Fantasy has had in recent years. You have Kefka is an all-timer, Sephiroth for some, an all-timer. But for the last several iterations, there hasn't been that definitive, well-executed big bad. And Arden nailed it to a T. And I think part of it was the voice acting. The acting was impeccable for the character. And you're really hating this character by the end of it. And it's such a deep, twisted, almost campy sort of character. If you've played Final Fantasy 15, you know the unusual charm of Arden Izunya. So that would be my choice for antagonist of the year. Game trailer, best game trailer of the year. These are interesting too because not only can these be games from 2016, but also games from the future. But let's say Battlefield 1, the official reveal trailer. I mean, not only that blew up on YouTube, that was a really good trailer, and it was really impressive to see that kind of visual level. I mean, that Battlefield 1 totally delivered on. Then there's Death Stranding from the Game Awards 2016. Not only a very strange trailer just to watch what's going on, but then you compare like the baby shifting from the original reveal trailer over to this one. So that one was strange, but just very Kojima-like and just excellent. From Overwatch, lots of trailers, but probably Infiltration, I would say. Sombra's reveal trailer was the one that kind of had the internet really at a fever pitch because of the game, the ARG that the developers over at Blizzard were kind of playing and teasing Sombra for so long, and people were just waiting, and then you finally have this character revealed, and it was a great trailer with Boop. So I think that would be on there. But for me, the winner would be The Last of Us Part 2 with the PSX reveal. I mean, that is a trailer where I thought it was going to be The Last of Us 2, coming into that trailer, even though they had showed Uncharted at the beginning of PSX. But I just thought, you'd get the Firefly tease logo, Naughty Dog, and that's it. And they gave so much more, and it's a powerful, powerful trailer that'll have people talking until the game is revealed. And the last one I want to talk about is the best song in a game. Now, soundtrack and song, they can certainly be different. I mean, soundtrack would be kind of more of an overall collection of tunes and what it provides the game, but sometimes one song stands out in particular. It could be from an amazing soundtrack. It could be from a game that doesn't necessarily have a great soundtrack, but man, it has that one tune. So from Doom, BFG Division. This one just pumps into you, and when it really kicks in, I think this is the song that really defines the Doom soundtrack. I mean, gosh, not only do they play it on stage at the Game Awards, but it really has that drive, and it's the perfect tune that really sets the stage for that exemplary soundtrack that Doom had this year. From Final Fantasy XV, Apocalypsis Aquarius. Now there is Apocalypsis Noctis, which is a very similar version of the song, but these are like big boss battles against the gods in the game. And so Apocalypsis Noctis would take place against Titan, and this is the one that takes place when you are powered up and you're battling against Leviathan. It's a fantastic, fantastic song. From No Man's Sky, Asimov. Yeah, so No Man's Sky, really, really good soundtrack. And of course, the game, very disappointing for so many people, but a really, really solid soundtrack. And this is, I think, the best song from that soundtrack. It's very environmental in a way, even though it's, power and rock driven. It almost reminds me a little bit of M4 Part 2, the ending credits for Mass Effect, in the way where it kicks in and it just envelops you. It's a really powerful track, I think. And then another nominee to round out the four for me, from my favorite songs from a game this year, would be Reincarnation from Tokyo Mirage Sessions, Sharp FE. God, that is always a mouthful to say. But Reincarnation is a track where it's a catchy J-pop song. It was what they played during the trailer to reveal the game as Shin Megami Tensei Crossfire Emblem. But it's a really, really fun song, and whenever I hear it, it is an earworm. It's stuck in my head. But for me, the best song in a game for me this year has been Apocalypsis Aquarius from Final Fantasy 15. It is partially because it ties so strongly with that best moment, but it's Yoko Shimomura at her finest, and it's going to be interesting to see what she does for Kingdom Hearts 3 as probably her next big composing work. So those are some of my favorite categories throughout the year for the Game of Year awards that we did for Show Me Your News, but not many people seem to cover that. And I wanted to kind of run through what some of my nominees were for those categories and give you my favorite. Now, certainly for those calling in, We can discuss some of those. You can share some of your nominees, or what are some Game of the Year award nominees or categories that you think are generally not touched upon or kind of overlooked. Certainly would love to hear your thoughts on that. But if you also just want to talk games, well, you're certainly welcome to do that as well. The show is yours. I'm switching the power over to you. So when we come back from this commercial break, we'll be here with some people calling in. Welcome back to the Power Switch. Let's finally get into those callers that a call-in talk show needs to rely on. And to do a video game call-in talk show, it's a challenge. I wonder why one has never really taken off, but I think that's something that we're going to try here and see if we can succeed ourselves. So, Scott from Michigan, welcome to the Power Switch.
Happy to be here. Thanks for letting me call in and talk to you guys.
No problem. How are you doing?
Doing well. Just so many games came out this year. So many games.
Certainly. What are we going to talk about those games?
Well, in terms of your list, I think you were spot on with a number of them. Mine matches up a lot of similarly with yours. In terms of best moment in games, I definitely agree that the Leviathan fight was fantastic. Mm-hmm. But for me, what I think was even more hard-hitting and poignant for me was the aftermath, specifically on one of your party members after the Leviathan fight.
Yeah, that was a powerful moment for that game, certainly, and all the lingering effects that it had with the cohesion of the party.
That, and when you specifically had the choice whether or not to do something, left me. It was a simple yes or no choice, but it really made me think and genuinely feel for both the character and my decision in that. So I thought that was my favorite gaming moment of the year, I would say. That's
a good point. There are a lot of great moments from that game, and I think they did a really good job with Final Fantasy 15 to kind of craft those characters and to make them all likable. Even Prompto, and some people love Prompto, some may not like him, but yeah, there's a charm to him, and there's certainly some scenes that help emphasize his character. So yeah, a great game overall. If I had to, associate other categories to Final Fantasy 15, I'd probably put most pleasant surprise as Final Fantasy 15 as well. I mean, there are a lot of games that, be it Doom or Last Guardian, that Final Fantasy 15 as well, long development cycles, troubled pasts, but really delivered and created, solid experiences this year.
I completely agree. The biggest thing that really stuck with me with Final Fantasy 15 was, and I'm sure it's the same way for groups of girls who are friends, but you really get the sense and you can relate to the group of guy friends going on a trip. You can think to your group of friends and think, okay, he's like the Prompto of the group, he's the Gladiolus, et cetera, and I really like that. Mm-hmm.
It makes me think of, when I think it was that game that they were talking about in the early development cycle. It's we don't have any girls on there because it would change the dynamic of the group of guys. And it's just I wasn't sure how much I bought that line at the time, but it's I guess I can see what happens then. Because, you have character introductions like Gladio's sister. And it's just okay, things are certainly a little different, especially with certain side missions and whatnot. So...
Right. In terms of antagonist and protagonist, for antagonist, I like Arden, but I feel like he wasn't given enough screen time, or they didn't dive enough into his reasonings or his character and all that to really be super strong. And I'm hoping that they'll expand more in regards to DLC and things like that.
Right. Which is a whole other discussion for a whole other time. Yeah.
Exactly. But I think the biggest antagonist of the year was Hello Games, the developer, just with No Man's Sky and how they went radio silent after that. But
yeah, I think there are certainly some missteps, and that's a bold choice for antagonist of the year to be the developer. I mean, yeah, they certainly got in their own way, and if we're talking antagonist to be the one that gets in the way of progress, then that could be it. But I think, there were a couple other players that may have had a hand at that. I mean, Sony really building that up as, the exclusive, and you could argue that, Jeff Keighley initially with, putting it on was it the first Game Awards, or was it still VGX at the time? I can't remember. It's been a while. But, to really buy into that hype and to be one of the best things that he's seen, that really did not help. But yeah, Hello Games, I think the silence did not help them, and they could have been working on their patch update. But when it comes to getting hacked, and then they have to say, "Oh no, we were hacked, and this is what happened," and they have to cover for themselves. Yeah, they really got in their own way there.
Yeah, I completely agree. I will say though, there were a lot of really cool surprises also with this year. Yes, we finally got Your Last Guardian that turns out to be good. Doom turned out to be good. Final Fantasy turned out to be good. But outside of that, I think there were a lot of games that took people by surprise. I think World of Final Fantasy is one. It has so much charm to it that it's overshadowed by its big 15 brother, but the classic turn-based combat that people like, the kind of monster collection aspect of Pokemon they do well. It's a series that, while you can clearly tell it's the first, it's like a test thing, it was done well enough, and the writing and everything and the characters was so well done that it makes me want that series to continue. I genuinely enjoyed it. Same with Digimon Cyber Sleuth, another one of those kind of collectathons, but we haven't had a Digimon game in so long, and I arguably enjoyed the old Digimon show more than the Pokemon show, honestly.
Interesting.
The animes, not necessarily the games, but
right.
I did enjoy those. So to finally have a Digimon game again, and a really good one, was really nice. It was great that it also came out on Vita. That was another reason for me to play on my Vita.
Got to give the Vita some love. Yeah, definitely.
Love my Vita. And one of my big surprises is something Namco Bandai has been doing with a lot of their titles that are coming out overseas, especially like their Super Robot Wars series, Gundam series, things like that, is they've done something incredibly smart. These titles, because of so many licensing issues, they haven't been released over in the States. So what they're doing, and what they've done for a number of their titles this year and going into next year, is with the Chinese Asian edition, they're releasing them with English subtitle options. So you can import the games completely with English, and it's getting around the whole licensing issues that they would have if they tried to release actually in the States. And I've imported a number of games from Gundam Breaker 3 to Super Robot Wars, the Moon Dwellers, to a number of them. And it's a very smart idea. I hope other developers overseas kind of adopt, but that's been really good.
That is really wise. I mean, especially, when you have a market over here that is hungry for those kind of games. I know for something like Persona 5, when the localization time is now so long, and then when they pushed it back 2 more months, like the wait got even longer. But if Atlus and Sega, as a result, if they had just that game in Japanese but with subtitles, I'd import the hell out of that. And exactly. I think that goes along with, PS4 to be a region-free console. And you hope that, something like Nintendo Switch, when that gets released, that goes that way as well. Yeah, I think to realize a more global market is really smart. And really kudos to Namco Bandai for doing that.
Completely agree.
All right. So, Scott, anything that you want to plug, anywhere that people can reach you?
I actually co-run, write, and am a part of the nerd culture website, dashingnerds.com. We do game reviews, previews, we do comics, movies, all sorts of stuff. So be sure to check me out and the rest of the Dashing Nerds team at dashingnerds.com.
All right, Scott. Well, thank you for being the first caller of this pilot episode. Really appreciate your time here on the PowerSwitch.
Well, thanks for having me, Peter.
Yeah, thank you. All right, Joe from Kansas. Thank you for calling in. How are you doing?
Pretty good. Thank you for having me on.
Of course. What's up? What's on your mind?
Well, I am actually not really going to split into the separate categories. I just kind of want to go over my personal top 10 in general.
Yeah, sounds great.
Just top 10 coming out this year. So I actually had a list for this already written out for something else. So this is very convenient.
All right.
So number 10 is Valhalla Cyberpunk Bartending Action. And so basically it is a visual novel, came out very recently, about a woman named Jill who works at a bar as the bartender, obviously. And there are the customers that come in, and the way that you change where the story goes is the type of drinks you make. And I don't 100% know how it works, but I've seen people have experiences that I didn't have. All the characters are fun. The story is not super anything special. And if you don't really like visual novels, this probably isn't the game for you. I will not pretend that it breaks the mold. It's so good. Everybody would love it because I'm perfectly aware that there are a whole lot of people that would not like this game. But I personally enjoyed it a lot.
Yeah, it seems like one that I'd be interested in. I mean, I do like visual novels as well. It was an aesthetic that kind of reminds me of Read Only Memories as well, actually. And that one has the 2064 update, I think comes in January.
And there are a lot of references to that, actually.
Yeah, that's not surprising. It seems very similar in some ways there.
I believe you could, I didn't, but you can get 2 characters from Read Only Memories to show up in the bar as customers.
Oh, that's smart.
I didn't figure out how to do it, but you can buy a little Turing to put in your room.
Oh,
I did
nice.
That's what I did.
That is some smart cross promotion. Kudos to them.
I'm pretty sure it might actually be canon with Read Only Memories too, which is funny because they mention characters all the time. Number 9 is Pokken Tournament, which is surprising that a non-Smash fighter would go on my top 10 because I played Street Fighter this year and I really liked Street Fighter, but I wouldn't put it on my top 10. But Pokken is super fun, and it kind of feels like they took some of their approaches to Smash as well. Because, I mean, they made the new Smash. They made Smash Wii U. Namco did. And they kind of took their approach, and it seems like they took that into Pokken because all the moves are super simple. There's no, like, weird button inputs, which has always been kind of a blocker for me for fighting games. I'm not saying they should go away. I'm saying I'm bad at them.
Right, yeah, same.
And Pokken really fixes that, because all the moves basically work a lot like Smash, where it's just a direction and a button, and bam, you're doing a move. I play Pikachu Libre because if you don't, you're playing wrong. Personally, I feel like. And, you know, I don't really have anything else to say about that game because there's not really much more to it.
It's one really I'm itching to try. It's one I'm itching to try, and it's deep in the GameFly queue there. But it's
really
good.
Really good fighting game. Not much more to it, though. And that's why it's only up at number 9. Number 8 is Fire Emblem Fates. All 3 of them lumped together as one game. Because I played all 3 of them in rapid, like back to back to back. I burned myself out so heavily with these games, but I really, really liked them.
I tried to get back into it recently, and yeah, it's a point where like my main character is so over leveled, and it was a kind of similar situation that happened with Awakening. And when I really hit the stride in Awakening, like I couldn't put it down. So like I'm waiting for that to happen with Birthright. But I can totally see like just the quality there, and for a point I did have it above Pokemon Sun and Moon as, you know, best 3DS game of the year.
See, I don't think it's as good as Awakening personally.
Mm-hmm.
I think it has a lot of problems that Awakening didn't, and I've seen this parroted around by other people, and that is one of the big problems with the Fates games is that the main character, the creative character, plays a central role.
Yeah.
The story is about him or her, and that's kind of a problem because in Awakening, the story is about Chrom and Lucina.
Right.
Those are the main characters, and the avatar is just sort of along for the ride. And I think that works a lot better because then they can write it around an actual established character instead of your creative character. Because Corrin has a character to himself, but I think that kind of spoils it a little bit. I don't know how else to explain it.
Yeah, and plus, like when you're having the varied games, it does kind of spread the narrative out quite a bit. Whereas, yeah, Awakening had a just really strong sort of central arc, so I can see that. I mean, I really, really loved Awakening. That was one of the best games of that year for sure.
Mm-hmm. And I think the other problem I have with the game is Revelations. There's too many damn characters. There's too many.
That's true. I'll give you that. Yeah.
There's so many characters, but that's Fire Emblem Fates. Number 7 actually goes to Ace Attorney Spirit of Justice.
Great game.
Because that game was super good. Dual Destinies kind of fell flat for me.
Yeah.
I liked it because I don't think I've disliked any of the Ace Attorney games. Like, not even Apollo Justice, which a lot of people seem to really like to dislike. I thought it was okay.
Yeah, that was a good game. Dual Destinies, like they really sell you like the big twist at the end was so memorable and so great, but it only had a couple other decent moments. So yeah, I can see the kind of falling flat. But at this one, to be about Apollo Justice, really, when you come to think of it, he got his moment in the sun, really.
Yeah, he got his moment in the sun, and he really needed that because his first game is one of the most disliked games of the series, and Dual Destinies it's again down there for a lot of people. But Spirit of Justice, he did great. They gave him a great character arc. I hate Sodmati though. never ended up liking him.
Yeah, the redemption was a bit weak. I'll
the
say
redemption
that,
was super weak, and I don't like him as a character because he's my least favorite type of antagonist because it's the easiest to write.
Right.
And I don't know. I don't really know how to explain why I dislike Nayuta all that much. I just never liked him.
But Matt Mercer is cool though.
Oh yeah, no, he's voiced. All the voices in that game are fantastic. All of the animation, the models look better than they did in Dual Destinies, and I guess I was in the minority, but I thought Dual Destinies looked great.
Yeah, I thought it did too, but there's definitely improvements in Spirit of Justice. Also, Rafa for surprise best character.
I love Rafa. She's so precious and adorable. And really mean to me. Doesn't like me.
Really good game, though.
Very, very good game. Number 6 is Pokemon Moon. I don't think I need to go into why. It's a really good. I think it's the best Pokemon game in years.
Yeah.
Despite 2 heavy flaws, being the calling for help system, which I think is one of the worst things they've ever put into a Pokemon game, and the Festival Plaza, which I don't know how you mess up online play that badly.
It's terrible.
When the last generation had the best online play.
It really did. It really did. And yeah, like to do that was ridiculous. For calling for help, either have it be an option or put it in the post game.
I felt like the totems should have been the only ones to do it, or adrenaline orbs should have been like if you throw an adrenaline orb, that's the only way it should be able to happen.
I think that'd be a good solution. Yeah, that's a good solution.
Instead, I'm pretty sure adrenaline orbs don't do anything. I am positive at this. I'm probably wrong.
It's like what they up the chance, but really not by that much. Yeah, it's crazy.
They up the chance, but it's already so high that it doesn't matter.
It's like, wait, maybe what, another 10%? I don't know. What's your number 5?
Number 5 goes to Rhythm Heaven Megamix.
Oh yeah, that came out this year, didn't it?
Yeah, like Surprise came out because I believe, if I remember correctly, Nintendo was just like, yeah, it's out right now. Have fun.
Yeah,
they didn't give anybody any warning or anything. And other than the story, which is stupid, why does this game have a story? It's not just the fact that Rhythm Heaven has a story. It's a bad story, and it's boring and dumb, and I just want to get to the rhythm games.
Yeah.
But other than that, this is probably my favorite 3DS game.
Wow, nice.
Of all time. It's so good. Like, Rhythm Heaven Fever was my favorite Wii game. This is probably my favorite DS game.
I did love Rhythm Heaven Fever, and I should really give Megamix a try.
It is really, really fun. Number 4, it goes to Overwatch because, god damn, that game is good.
Yeah.
You mentioned earlier, if you like Team Fortress 2, you'd probably like Overwatch. I actually hate Team Fortress 2.
Really? Really?
I do not like it. I've never had fun with it. I tried it a couple of times and just could not get into it. Overwatch, however, before it came out, I didn't care. Like, it's a team shooter. Why should I care? I don't play those. Blah, 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 blah. And then the open beta came out. And I decided, well, I mean, screw it. It's free. I'll try it. Hot damn, that game is fun. Especially you get the right group of friends. I'm not very good at it, but I'm actually super, super bad at it. But it's a lot of fun. I play Lucio and I play McCree. Or I played Lucio. They're Lucio.
There's the high noon guy with McCree. More Matt Mercer. Hey, there you go.
More Matt Mercer.
You know, it's maybe that was my flaw when I tried it on that free weekend. Like I just didn't play with friends, and so maybe that was my flaw. I don't know.
I sort of enjoy it when not playing with friends, but compared to like playing with a group of people that I enjoy and having a lot of fun with it, it's amazing when you're playing with people that you like and who like you and who won't yell at you for being bad.
that probably makes a difference. Yeah.
And people who know how to get on the point. Get on the damn point, people. This isn't a kill match.
Deliver the payload.
Deliver the payload. The kill count doesn't matter. Stop walking away. Number 3 is Tokyo Mirage Session Sharp FE. I did not expect that game to be as good as it was.
Yeah. I really, really liked it, and then I'm like, oh, this is a really long RPG, and I got it through GameFly. I'm like, I'm gonna buy it at the start of the new year, and I'm gonna play it and kind of pass the time to wait for Persona 5.
It's a very good waiting for Persona 5 game, which is why I bought it when I thought it was coming out in February. When you hear the tears in my voice, it's really, really good. The battle system is super well done. Soundtrack is great, though I can't find it anywhere. And other than the 2 dungeons, there's the second dungeon and the very last dungeon are both god awful. But past that, the characters are all likable unless their name is Tsubasa. I love the texting thing on the gamepad. I think that's a really good use of the gamepad. I hate how dungeon maps are on the gamepad, but that's another issue. I just don't like having to look away from the game to see where I am in the dungeon. It doesn't work. In theory, it works. In practice, it does not.
Just put it in the HUD in the corner and you're fine.
Exactly. Give me a mini map. The game doesn't even have that. But other than that, I think it was a good choice keeping the game in Japanese. I understand it was for the music, but I'm also pretty sure it's because they didn't think the game would sell well enough to justify translating it. And I believe they were right. I don't think the game sold super well.
Probably did not know, but I think it was a really good choice.
I don't think it bombed, but yeah. Otherwise, I mean, if you have a Wii U and you haven't checked it out yet, and you like JRPGs and you like Persona especially, go check it out. It's a good game.
I'd say it's arguably the best Wii U game of the year.
I 100% think that.
I mean, you could say like Axiom Verge and all that, but like that game came out last year. Like, let's not do that game.
Number 2 is Stardew Valley, which is a game that ate my life for several months.
Yep.
I don't think I have anything else to say about it except, honestly, give it a shot. It seems boring on paper, but it's really just, if you play it at the right time, which is end of the day, you're just trying to wind down. You don't want anything super action-y or fast. You just want a nice, relaxing night in with a video game. Stardew Valley is your man.
Such an indie labor of love. Very impressive.
I am super impressed with the guy who made it. He is inspirational as hell because of his story with making this game. And it just came to consoles. It's on PS4. I think if it hasn't come out on Xbox One yet, it is supposed to within the next week or so.
I've heard the controller support is a little rough, but at least, definitely give it a shot on PC for sure.
It's absolutely on PC. I think is probably the best way to play it. It was going to come to Wii U. It is not anymore. I don't think.
Probably Switch.
Most likely Switch. But it's definitely give it a shot. It's the best relaxing end of the day game I've ever played. Better than Minecraft, even, personally. It's Harvest Moon with more to do.
There you go. And your number one.
Number 1 goes to Oxenfree. Oh my God. I almost missed out on this game. I'm so glad I didn't. I got really into horror games recently. I was not into horror games for a lot of my life. And then recently I got into Silent Hill, which led me to Resident Evil, which led me to a bunch of other stuff. But Oxenfree is so good. And I wouldn't call it a horror game. It's more of just it's kind of spooky, kind of creepy, but it doesn't really try to scare you so much as it just makes you feel kind of uneasy. It's a lot like Silent Hill 2 in that regard, where it relies on atmosphere instead of stuff jumping out at you. The atmosphere is so good. I don't know what else I can even say about the game without spoiling stuff. It's got a lot of a radio aesthetic to it.
Perfect for this kind of show.
It's so... Voice acting is top-notch. Just about everything in that game is perfect, in my opinion, aside from like one puzzle I think I didn't enjoy. But other than that, it's really, really, really good. If you have any interest in anything like that, any kind of spook scare game, any kind of creepy vibe, even just wanting to study game atmosphere, Oxenfree is for you. Definitely look into it. It's so good.
That sounds really good. Well, Joe, thank you for sharing your top 10 list. Where can people find you on the internet?
I am on Twitter at TheDobaga, but I tweet a lot, so maybe don't follow me. But I am also I also run a Twitch channel called Detective Dobaga, which hasn't been active lately, but will start being active again soon. So you should keep a lookout for that. I play Nancy Drew games and also other games, but mostly Nancy Drew games. It's more fun than it sounds, I promise. For you, not for me.
All right, very good. Well, Joe, thank you so much for calling in. Really appreciate the time.
Thank you for having me on.
Exelev from Texas. Thank you for calling into the Power Switch. Welcome.
Hello.
What would you like to talk about with games?
Well, I haven't played a whole lot this year. It was a very busy year for me, but I have been watching. So I've been thinking about approaching this Game of the Year thing from like the same perspective Time approaches Man of the Year. Not something that's necessarily like the best, but just the things that were significant this year in the culture.
Yeah,
gaming.
definitely.
Well, for Game of the Year, there's two things I can think of that really defined this year in gaming, and one of them is obvious. One of them is definitely Overwatch. I mean, I have heard so much about Overwatch. I've seen so much Overwatch artwork. I've seen Overwatch cosplay. It's just everywhere.
It has created an amazing community, and I think Blizzard's done a really good job with not only creating that world but also sustaining it, and really encouraging their community to be creative. The downloadable content that has continued to be free. They've done a really great job. I think if I had to name a studio of the year, it would be Blizzard for just that, for creating and maintaining such a really great game.
Oh, absolutely. The other game, though, kind of, I get why no one's mentioned it so far, because it kind of challenges the definition of the game, because it's a mobile game, and I think you might know where I'm going, but Pokemon Go was huge.
It was very huge.
And it's still pretty big. It's just not as big as it was. But when that game came out, I saw it everywhere. Like, this is the biggest Pokemon it's been since the 90s, I think.
Absolutely.
And it just felt like Pokemon's back. Not that it ever went away, but like it's ginormo huge again.
Yeah. Did you have any experiences while playing Pokemon Go where like you ran into people like on the street playing?
I got together with a few friends of mine on the first day Pokemon Go came out, and we were walking around my friend's neighborhood, and we would see other people walking around with their cell phones. It'd be like, Pokemon Go, Pokemon Go. And like, that's incredible.
Totally. Even if it's just something like that, that's a special kind of moment. I was with my wife, and we were on a anniversary trip, up in the state of Michigan, kind of like middle of the state or so. And we're going to different Pokestops, and you just see this gathering of people. Now, it's not like, Central Park Bay where you saw the people running out. It was like, oh, it's a Vaporeon or whatever it was. Nothing like that, but it's this gathering of 15 people or so just kind of collected all around this monument that is a Pokestop. And yeah, and it creates it's a bonding. So, we were sharing stories like, oh, I saw a Poliwag was over here, and I've got to get that. So that was remarkable. Not only that, but to see the people on the news and radio and all sorts of other mediums to talk about it, and it's like there's this Pokemon Go thing going on, and it even seep into politics with Pokemon Go to the polls and all sorts of things like that. But yeah, that was a remarkable game this year. And like, I still play every now and then, time to time. I'm level 23. It's now not that good compared to others, but it's a whole lot of fun. Got a lot of good memories with that game this year.
Yeah, I'm gonna continue to play it. Clearly, you mentioned Pokemon Go to the polls. There actually is a Pokestop right by where the polling place is in my neighborhood. So yes, you can Pokemon Go to the polls. There's a gym there too.
That's pretty funny.
Also, like, as far as just like hearing it everywhere, I remember I was watching Little League World Series, and I heard like the commentators just talking about Pokemon Go.
Wow.
I'm like, yeah, you look like a Snorlax. And like that's just how big Pokemon is right now.
Yeah, and it was interesting to see the different studies saying that, like, oh, will Pokemon Go's success help Pokemon Sun and Moon and help generate interest in 3DS? And you might think, well, no, maybe those aren't really attached to each other, but they totally did. I mean, Pokemon Sun and Moon was the best-selling Nintendo game, for the initial time period of sales and biggest pre-orders, and that really helped a spike in 3DS sales. So really interesting to see that correlation occur.
Yeah, I was skeptical at first, but I mean, I've seen new people get into Pokemon this year. It's crazy.
That's awesome.
But yeah, I think I should move on to other topics. You mentioned trailers, and I gotta say, I can't give it to Battlefield 1 because Battlefield 1 did something that I've just seen too often, and it is using a classic rock song, or, well, actually White Stripes isn't a classic rock song in a classic rock band, but...
We're old. It's almost been 10 years. It's fine.
Really?
Has it?
Anyway, but yeah, using an old rock song, but using like an epic cover of it. And I mean, that was neat the first time I saw something like that. And I guess it's a little different because they're using Glitch Mob's cover of it. And it's not like a regular epic cover, but like I've seen that so many times. It's all like, there's a game at E3 this year that used a cover of Gold Dust Woman, I think, by Fleetwood Mac. That one. Oh,
I'm trying to remember what that one is. Yeah.
I think there was one trailer that used like an epic cover of Nothing Else Matters by Metallica.
Yes.
I think there was a movie trailer that used like a Lord's cover of Everybody Wants to Rule the World. And like I've seen it so many times. It's like I feel bad criticizing something for doing something that's common, because I mean I'm guilty of that, but I've just seen it so many times.
Yeah, it is a common trend lately. Everybody Wants to Rule the World. That was Assassin's Creed Unity. That was a couple years ago.
So it was a game.
Yeah, it was a game, and that was a great trailer. I think that was my favorite trailer that year, to be honest. But I'm trying to remember what some of the other ones though were. Like it is a pretty common occurrence though. Seven Nation Army, for what it's worth, 2003. We are getting old.
The one I might give it to, I gotta give it to like both Death Stranding trailers, because I think right now those are something that are just clearly just defined by the trailers, because we don't know anything about what it is.
Yeah, very good point.
What I can only imagine is going to happen going forward is that we're just going to get more and more trailers for this game with no gameplay, and it's going to just move gradually away from gaming events like E3 and the Game of the Year Awards. So we just start seeing it in like the Emmys and like in movie theaters, and eventually it just turns out that Death Stranding is a movie. And then you watch the whole movie, and it turned out the trailer for the game, and then the game comes out, and I don't even know what happens after that.
That sounds like a long game Big Boss prediction.
It's Kojima, of course it is.
Exactly.
Honorable mention for like the Marvel vs. Capcom Infinite trailer. That got me pretty excited.
Yeah, that was exciting for sure.
I don't think we talked about the biggest disappointment.
No.
And what's strange is that we have two contenders for that this year.
You could argue in a third, but yeah, certainly No Man's Sky.
No Man's Sky, I mean, I don't have to say it. The other one that was on my mind is Mighty Number 9.
That's definitely another one.
What was the third one you were thinking
I would think Battleborn would be up there as well. Not as high as those other two, but if you wanted to make a case for a third. Battleborn, with all the Gearbox hype and the Borderlands pedigree behind it, and that was a game going right up against Overwatch, and we know clearly what won out in that. Battleborn was a case of trying too hard the game to the point where it just turned off a lot of people. And that's just a big disappointment for those fans of Borderlands for sure. But yeah, I mean, for the news that No Man's Sky and Mighty Number 9 made, the delays, the anime fan on prom night.
Yeah, I was going to mention that for like the anti-best trailer of the year.
yeah, the worst one for sure.
Comparing No Man's Sky and Mighty Number 9, I think Mighty Number 9 might be a bigger disappointment because we've been waiting so long, and that was made with fan money, whereas No Man's Sky was just something that we saw a trailer of, and I remember watching that trailer thinking, there's no way this is as good as it looks. I wasn't really surprised that it was a letdown, but Mighty Number 9 was just something people wanted so badly. They were willing to put their own money into it, and it came out disappointing, and that's just sad. And I hope something good can come out of it in the future.
I totally agree. I think with the Kickstarter money and it being a historic record-setting Kickstarter in that, No Man's Sky was mismanaged poorly after the release, but during development, you can really just count the number of missteps that Mighty Number 9 took. And I think you make a great point like that. They're neck and neck for me. Now, granted, I'm not one to spew hate about No Man's Sky like much of the gaming community seems to be. I think that's absurd. But yeah, it was disappointing, but I still had a little fun with it. So I'm not going to hate it.
That's generally what I've gathered from looking at people's opinions, is that it's not revolutionary, but it's interesting. I mean, the worst thing I've seen about it is that one clip of the weird dinosaur-looking thing that just has the wrong legs.
Yeah, definitely. That's a weird one. So, Exelev, where can people find you on the internet?
I mean, I have a Tumblr. I was famous for making a post about Star Wars and commenting on a post mentioning that Benjamin Franklin probably had a persona. These things all make sense in context.
Where can they find you on Tumblr?
Exelev, EXELEV.tumblr.com.
Very good. Well, thank you so much for calling in. Really appreciate the time.
Thank you. It was great to talk to you again.
Certainly, and you too. All right, let's wrap up the calls with DQP all the way from Alaska. Welcome to the Power Switch. How are you doing?
I'm doing very well. Yourself?
Very good, very good. Getting the hang of the adding and muting again, and it feels like old E3 podcasts for Show Me Your News, but it's good to be doing this.
It's that fresh, nostalgic feeling.
A little bit, but with a 2016 spin.
Before I get to my main topic, I wanted to say that Doba brought up the prospect of Stardew Valley on the Switch. And I think that would be like the perfect thing for a new portable console.
Oh, totally.
Because I think that game's a great fit for something that's like, oh, I think I'll just, on the bus, I'll just whip out my good old tablet device and do some farming for a bit. It seems like a natural fit to me.
And it seems like the kind of thing, I mean, where surely, Nintendo is making an Animal Crossing for Wii U, I would imagine. But yeah, I'm sure once, definitely. Switch started to become more of a thing, it's like, well, we can take it anywhere, like, Animal Crossing Wild World and that kind of idea. So I'm sure Animal Crossing is also in the works. Not trying to, fuel the rumor pile or whatever, but it makes too much sense just for that same argument to take that game wherever, like with Stardew Valley.
How can you not fuel the rumor pile? It's a brand new Nintendo console.
Exactly.
It happens every time.
And now they're talking with the Eurogamer reports today about the specs, and people are getting all concerned. It's like it's not as powerful as an Xbox One or PS4. It's like, well, you gotta make it mobile.
Matters
yeah.
How?
It's
exactly.
It's a portable console. It's not going to be as powerful as your set-top boxes.
It'll be what it'll be.
Exactly.
That's the end of the story, I think. And regardless of whether, EA and From Software, well, I hope From Software sticks around, but
that
everybody
would be
else.
So cool.
From Software Metroid.
Oh,
am I the only one who doesn't want that?
Dang, that
would be fucking awesome, man.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
That's like a match made in heaven.
And even if they do, portable Dark Souls, like just, the trilogy on Switch, like that's I don't play Dark Souls, but go nuts. Like,
die on the bus, die on the plane, die on the train, die on the toilet.
And it's the ingenious strategy of, throwing the Switch in anger, and you got to buy a new one.
Genius. Devilishly so.
Mm-hmm.
Like a certain brand. Okay, I'm getting off topic. I personally wanted to vouch for my non-Overwatch game of the year, which is Doom.
Yeah.
And
yep.
That surprised me a bit when I thought to myself, what are my favorite games this year? And I didn't play a lot of the games like Titanfall 2 or Last Guardian or any of the other ones that are sweeping up the awards this year.
Right.
I did play Overwatch, but that's a no-brainer.
Mm-hmm.
Doom surprised me. And that's because every year, the games that tend to stick with me are games that are very story-heavy. So games like The Walking Dead, BioShock Infinite, The Last of Us, Undertale especially.
Yeah.
But Doom, well, I don't want to say it has a bad story because it actually has an okay story, but it's all in the periphery. It's a game that relies on expressing aggression through gameplay. And it does that one specific thing really, 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 really well.
Yeah.
Like in a way that surprised me coming from a AAA development house. Like I think Game Maker's Toolkit, you follow those guys on YouTube?
I do not, no.
They're an interesting channel. They do a lot of game design talk, and they were talking about Nintendo. And they brought up Doom, the new one, as an interesting example of a AAA developer following Nintendo's example. And I think they have a pretty good point, because Nintendo's games, like a lot of AAA games, focus on prejudice or life in the city or the life of crime or other narrative thematic things like that. Whereas Nintendo games are focused on like throwing Pikmin or spraying graffiti or simple actions. And Doom is exactly the same way. It's all about freaking killing demons. That's all it's about. But it does that super, super well. Rather than just having health kits everywhere or having regenerating health, it has you regenerate health by killing demons.
And they're so visceral too. Oh man.
It has you refill your ammo by killing demons. It gives you this wide array of things to do by killing demons. And I don't want to spoil the whole of it, but there were moments where I was surprised just how far they could take this premise. I don't even want to dare to say that it's better than the originals, because the originals are pretty damn good. But I was very pleasantly surprised. Like, I played the multiplayer beta before the game came out, and I was just not impressed. I didn't think it was very good. But, then I started seeing reviews. I started hearing good word of mouth, and I picked it up, and I was seriously impressed. And I'm really looking forward to what the new developers at id have in store for the future. And again, if you play games for the story primarily, then it's not something that you'll get really into. But from a gameplay standpoint, it really, really works. Not a whole lot of people bought it, so you could probably get it for super cheap nowadays. Like, I think Steam sales are already taking it down to like 20 or 30 bucks now.
It's down around 20 bucks right now for some of the last rush before Christmas sort of sales. So yeah.
So if you're looking for an end of the year game that you might have missed, Doom is really, really good. Like my non-Overwatch game of the year, I dare say. It was really good. I was very surprised by it. And of course, Overwatch is Overwatch, so can't replace that.
Certainly. I'm really waiting to have the PC be good enough, and probably Christmas gifts or whatever have you come around, but really waiting for the PC to be up to snuff to be able to just dive into Doom. So
yeah, well, it doesn't take much. It's that's the other thing I liked about it, is it's a very good port. Like if you go to Reddit or something and find a good budget PC, you could probably easily run it at that with like high settings, maybe.
Yeah,
it runs really, really well.
Got to get it pumping with that Mick Gordon soundtrack, though.
Ooh, yeah. Did you see the performance at the Game Awards?
Yeah,
Holy cow!
It's clearly the best performance there, and I know some people are fans of rap, and that's fine. But I want the Game Awards to be about game music, and sure, you gotta try to sell it to the audience at large that may not be interested to automatically tune in. So you get Ray Shrimmer and Black Beatles and #1 song in the world, okay, whatever. But like Game Awards, game music, and yeah, they nailed that perfectly. That was awesome.
Well, that's the interesting thing about game music, is that not a whole lot of it lends itself very well to live performance. So, like, you have the Legend of Zelda Orchestra, which is great. You have Mick Gordon and Doom, which was fucking fantastic, I think.
Yeah.
But you think of a lot of game soundtracks, and they kind of generically, like even something like Overwatch, unless you did like one of the Lucio songs, you couldn't really do that live, really.
But you can maybe even do like a DJ and like mix things together, like do a medley. I don't know.
Or find someone like Family Jewel 7X or Benjamin Briggs or something.
Yeah, they're good.
Find a fan who remixes that stuff. I mean, I'm sure many people have talked about how video game music relies less on melody and more on ambience and atmosphere. So like something like Uncharted, which has a brilliant theme, I think.
Yeah.
But in battle, I say this having only watched footage of Uncharted. But in battle, it tends to be sort of generic action music that changes and wavers in and out as the fight gets more and more intense, less and less intense, and then it sort of fades out once the battle's done. Whereas something like Doom, that music is meant to get your blood pumping, get the adrenaline rushing, and every time a fight starts and you hear that boom, 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 I'm just like, yeah. It just feels fantastic.
Mm-hmm.
And I feel like with a strong melody or even with a strong beat, I feel like that's the kind of thing that would lend game music to good live performance. But I don't know. I'm going on an insane tangent here.
No, it's good. I mean, yeah, for best soundtrack, it's another one that I like, and for me, it's between Final Fantasy 15 and Doom, and I personally choose Final Fantasy 15. That really stood out more to me this year, but Doom is just spectacular as well. Uncharted 4 is actually one of the nominees that I would have put as well. That's Henry Jackman. That's he did Captain America: Civil War, Captain America: Winter Soldier. He did Kingsman. So like to have a composer with a pedigree like that to work on Uncharted, I would say that Edmondson's scores for like the first 3 games, they're special. They're fantastic. But it was a different kind of tonal shift that really also worked well for Uncharted.
Right.
And then Pokemon Sun and Moon, I think, also had a surprisingly good soundtrack this year.
Exelev is saying in the chat that Eric Calderon would be a pretty good live performance for the Game Awards. But it's interesting because every game is going to need a different soundtrack, and not every game is going to need something that is well suited to live music with really strong melodies rather than just ambience.
Right.
So like something like Doom, where you want the music to be sort of crazy and energizing, would not work for something like, say, The Last of Us, where you might want something a bit slower or maybe a bit quieter or something like that. Maybe even a little bit more intense. Or something like Final Fantasy, where you want something more mystical or something that sounds good while you're driving down the road.
Yeah.
And I haven't... How is Final Fantasy 15, by the way? I hear it's pretty good.
So it's another one where it surprisingly delivers. Despite all the 10 years and all the development struggles. I mean, Doom had similar ones as well with, a version that was canceled. I mean, yeah, like those 2 games, Last Guardian, like they delivered. Final Fantasy 15, like I'm not going to totally disclose what my top 10 games are of the year, but like definitely in top 5 for me this year.
Excellent.
It was really good.
This is coming from somebody who favors more Western style RPGs.
And that's kind of what this is actually.
Interesting.
I mean, it definitely has its roots in Final Fantasy and in JRPG, leveling, gear, mechanics, all that, but they've taken a lot of Western influence. And they've definitely put a splash of monster hunting in there as well.
As much as I love stuff like Paper Mario and Chrono Trigger and things like that, I tend to favor the sort of RPG where you get to sort of be your own character rather than just be told the story of a certain group of characters. So something like Fallout New Vegas or something where you get to forge your own destiny. You have like God knows how many endings, and where the world reflects you.
Yep.
And your actions. That's the kind of thing that I tend to favor in an RPG. But it's interesting that Final Fantasy is starting to kind of learn from that philosophy as those kinds of games become more prominent. Like I'm sure Skyrim is just still absolutely crushing. JRPG sales and things like that. So it's interesting to see where the market's turning in that regard.
Right. You can even make a lot of comparisons for Final Fantasy 15 to Metal Gear Solid 5 as far as overall game design. So if you liked MGS 5, I'd say give Final Fantasy 15 a try.
That's interesting because Metal Gear Solid 5 to me, it's an open world, of course, but to me it's more evocative of something like Dishonored or Deus Ex, where you get to scout the area and sort of feel out the best course of action depending on what kind of character you want to go as. So like if you have something like assault rifles, then you can just do it that way. I tried to do a no-kill run personally in the Phantom Pain.
That's tough.
And that radically changed the run. And and you could ask anybody what side character they favor. Like some people might say Quiet, some people might say D-Dog. I say D-Dog personally. But the fact that you can have so many different like water cooler conversations about how you played the game differently. Again, it's reflecting a more sort of Western design philosophy. Yeah,
and that's really what it is. Yeah,
where it's more about player expression rather than developer expression. Does that make sense?
Yeah,
Kind
no,
of?
totally. That's really what it is. I mean, the story overall takes kind of a back seat. Like it's obviously there, and they try to play it up as important, but really it's more of
It's
the
not very good.
it's more of the overall experience that you have. The gameplay loop is fun and great and engaging, and you have a lot of options at your disposal.
So, one last question before
Yeah.
I go.
Mm-hmm.
This year, I want to get into more franchises that I haven't gotten into yet. Kingdom Hearts being a really infamous one.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah.
But I want to get into Uncharted.
Yes.
And I haven't played any of those games before. I've played The Last of Us, and I would definitely like to replay that one before Part 2 comes out.
Mm-hmm.
I have them on PS3.
Right.
And I don't know if you would recommend skipping over those and going for the PS4 version, because I hear that it's quite different on PS4.
I do recommend the Uncharted collection on PS4. Not only can you get it really cheap, that really helps. I mean, like we're probably talking, some of these sales have been under $20. Like because it comes as a bundle with that game, so like that's going to help drive down the cost. Usually that happens with a lot of these bundled in console games. But they tried to make the mechanics as similar throughout all three as possible. I mean, 2 and 3 were developed basically within 2 years of each other. And so like they were very similar in a lot of ways, but like the difference between 1 and 2 is staggering on PS3. And if you want a more cohesive experience, I think the collection, I mean, Blue Point did an amazing job with really just boosting 1 to make it, because 1 has its problems on PS3, but it's actually really quite playable again on PS4 with the collection. So I do recommend the collection. Blue Point did an amazing job with it, and I think that's the way to experience when you build it up and lead into 4.
All right. We'll keep that in mind.
Oh, great. Well, thank you so much for contributing. Where can people find you on the web?
You can find me at my YouTube channel at SuperDQP.
Uh-huh.
And I used to do weekly reviews, but that's kind of fallen off since this year has not been good financially.
It's been a tough one, yeah.
I'm working on a mini-series about my personal favorite games at the moment. And after that, I made a video a couple weeks ago about the Steam controller and about the 3 games to play if you want to learn how to use it. And while my typical videos tend to get like 100 to 150 views, that Steam controller video is now at 9,000 and counting.
Nice.
So that might mean I have to reorganize my priorities. Like I've been replaying Doom 2016 on the Steam controller, and it actually is very interesting. So I definitely do want to do a mini series like how to play this popular game on Steam with the controller, how to play Counter-Strike, how to play Ark, or stuff like that. But I do also definitely want anyway. I could explain all of this on my own YouTube channel anyway. But it's SuperDQP, which is the same as my Twitter handle. Facebook is at SuperDQP as well. I don't stream regularly at all, but you can find me at Twitch at DQP742. And if you watch one of my videos, there's actually a link to Steam curators. So if you want me to invade your Steam homepage, that's a good way for me to do it. But yeah, that's where you can reach me. And yeah, it was nice hanging out with you. Thank you for inviting me.
No problem. Very well spoken about games. Good to hear your opinions, and thank you again for calling in.
Let me know when you guys are doing this again. I'd love to join you again.
All right, wonderful. All right, when we come back, we'll wrap up the show quickly with revisiting my 11 video game predictions for 2016, and we'll see how I did. Stay tuned. Welcome back to the Power Switch. Over on rhymeswithasia.com, which is the website that presents this show, and it's my personal webpage, blog, what have you. I wrote 11 video game predictions at the beginning of the year for 2016. And I haven't really looked at them since, and I wanted to kind of really quickly go over them and see how I did. And this should be interesting. Number 1, we will be able to play The Legend of Zelda Wii U on NX's handheld component. There's a lot to unpack here. First of all, we did not know Breath of the Wild would be the subtitle at the beginning of the year. Then we also still refer to NX. Turns out this is true. However, it is not happening this year. The game did get delayed to 2017, so maybe half right on that. So that's unfortunate. Number 2, PlayStation VR will be priced at $399 and will launch alongside No Man's Sky in June. $399, yes. No Man's Sky, no. That was August. So, again, maybe half right, I suppose. Number 3, Mass Effect Andromeda will be delayed to 2017. Yes. Ding, ding, ding. Right on the money, unfortunately. It's really weird that they keep saying spring 2017 for that game. I really want to hear a date, but I'm sure they're figuring something out. Number 4, the 500 gigabyte model of Xbox One will be discounted to $299 by the end of the year. I think Xbox One S is even selling for $299, and that's like a 1 terabyte model. So it's definitely a yes for this one. I think I've seen some versions of the original, the OG Xbox One. That feels really weird to say. I think I've seen some down to $249. Like, Xbox One has been really crazy with, just stacking the bundle of games in a console. Like, get 4 games and a 5th one of your choice. It's like they're really trying to make up the ground. But yeah, that's definitely true. Number 5, Ubisoft will first officially announce Watch Dogs 2 at E3 2016 and then release it in the fall. Ding, ding, ding. Right on the money. Dogs times 2. Number 6, a new traditional Pokemon RPG will be announced for NX, in addition to Pokemon Z for 3DS. No and no. Pokemon Z, I'm shocked that never happened. But at the same time, for Gen 7 to be such a quick turnaround, that figures that they were working on that. Though the rumors saying of Pokemon Stars to be a 3rd game on NX, that's a possibility. I would love to see that happen. I would think that is a very good chance of happening, but not confirmed. Can't even give myself half a point for that one there, for a Pokemon game on NX or Switch. I remember the times when we called it NX. Such wistful memories. Number 7, I think we're on here. Microsoft will announce a partnership with Konami to publish one of their IP exclusive to Xbox One. This was back during the time of rumors of maybe Silent Hills would come back in some way, shape, or form, and Microsoft was going to pay $2 billion and get it back on their system. No. Wrong. Number 8, Nintendo will publish a handheld game from their past, Game Boy, Game Boy Advance, or DS, as a mobile game available on iOS. Has not happened. I don't think they're going to explore that option, considering what they've been saying about mobile games. Mobile games so far have been pretty solid. I mean, Pokemon Go. I'm still the kind of person who collects all the Miitomo calendar pages, even though I don't do much of anything with that game anymore. But, it's building those rewards, and it's one simple login every day, so I'm, helping their metrics somehow. And then Super Mario Run just came out. I got to put more time into that. Really, really do. We got number 9? A reboot of Crash Bandicoot will be announced for its 20th anniversary. I'm going to just give myself, I'll say the yes, that happened with the Insane trilogy. A remaster, in a way. Like, this is what Crash Bandicoot needs. Just all 3 games. Like, the improvements there look pretty impressive. So yeah, I'll consider that as another point in my favor. Why not? Sure. Number 10, Valve will announce Left 4 Dead 3. Oh, I wished. And that's not happening. And number 11, Rovio will announce an Angry Birds game for VR. Honestly, I'm surprised this has not happened. Like, shocked. After the Angry Birds movie came out and all that, and they wanted to maintain the brand relevance, but it is a dying brand. One can hope. So let's see. If I were to count them all up and give myself some amount of credit, I'll say 5 points out of 11. That's not bad. Could be a lot better. Hopefully we'll have a future topic of game predictions for 2017, and we'll have you guys call in with your predictions, some big boss predictions, perhaps. But that's in another episode. This wraps up the pilot episode for the PowerSwitch. Just wanted to get things sort of running along with the public reveal that'll be coming with this show. Still only a few people know about this show and what it's trying to accomplish. So for those that join me, thank you. For those that have been helping to create this, again, thank you. really excited to be back into podcasting again. And with this kind of show to kind of give the people the power, I think that's a new way to go about things for gaming podcasts. So really looking forward to expand upon this idea. So with that, I'm Peter. Thank you for listening. Let's switch up, call in, game on.